Here, let me ask you a first Twitter question here.
Okay.
Marty, mutual friend of ours, goes, has Panther been going to the tanning booth? I'm aware of his Italian roots, but he looks like a billionaire who's spent the last 67 months on a beach in the Amalfi Coast. Have you been? And then he asked me if I've ever been to a tanning bed, which I have not. I couldn't even fit in one.
I bet it's been, boy, I got to think about the years now. I'm going to say it's been...
Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Our next live show is November 18th at Splitrocks. November 18th at Splitrocks at 7 p.m. Hopefully everybody comes on out. I know a lot of people up in the Northern Birds have been asking when we were coming back to Splitrocks, and we are now coming November 18th. Anthony, the Wild's last two victories have come with a fourth line of Yakov Trenyan, Ben Jones, and Tyler Pitlick. Clearly the key to this franchise is those three.
Those three guys. I will say, and people are going to hear this and think, oh yeah, LaPanta thinks those three guys are the key. They're not. But the fourth line was better against Vancouver and had a different identity to the way they played than the fourth line has had this year. And Ben Jones' ability on the faceoff dot is a part of that. But I thought that they played with a purpose in that game. They played with a physical intensity. They had some jump. They had some zip. There were a couple shifts where those guys went out, got the puck in the offensive zone, threw a couple hits. And that sometimes, I know we always talk about the fourth line, you can't go out there and get scored on, but sometimes it's nice to generate a little momentum and excitement.
Yeah.
And I talked
it's the most physical we've seen them all year.
Right. And I talked to a couple other players who just said those guys were more vocal on the bench. They were more engaged in the game on the bench with those three guys working together. And I don't know how long they're going to last, because as you start to get players back, the trickle down is going to bounce a couple of those guys out of the lineup, as it should. But at least in the short term, I think we'll see those guys again as a fourth line in hopes of providing some of that energy.
Yeah, and there will probably have to be a move because to activate Zuccarello, I think they're at 22 guys, but most likely they would send somebody down. And who knows? Maybe it's Danilo Yurov, right? I mean, I don't know. I would assume, the fact I said it flippantly, but the Wild's last two wins are with those three in the lineup. I would assume that means Danilo Yurov is not playing against the Nashville Predators on Tuesday night. So we will see at the morning skate. Wild, much needed victory, Anthony. And, it's funny. So sometimes fans are funny. They've kind of been all over Joe and me for being, pretty opinionated our last couple columns and really critiquing the organization, the roster construction, things like that. And then they have a big win against Vancouver that was much needed. Granted, a depleted team without Quinn Hughes, Carter Garland, and players like that. But then we get hammered like this game meant nothing. So we're not supposed to write about it. But they had to win that game just to lower the temperature a little bit. And obviously, we all know that if they don't start winning games on a routine basis or take a step back against Nashville, that sort of makes that game irrelevant. But it needed to happen. And I thought what was so assuring about that game is that they did play with much more of the identity that we're usually accustomed to seeing from a physicality standpoint, from a not crumbling in the third period standpoint when Vancouver pushed. And they got balanced scoring up and down the lineup. They got really good play from Joel Eriksson, Vinny Hinostroza, Jonas Brodin with a mangled finger, a goal and an assist. Tarasenko breaks out with a goal and 2 assists. So there was a lot of positiveness out of that game, granted, against a lineup that has a lot of injuries.
Yeah, and that's what you're supposed to do against a lineup like that, is keep it simple, play the game the way you're supposed to play, and put the hammer to them. And they did that throughout the night. And I don't think it was just that game. I really think when you go back and look, if you just analyze the way the game was played, the Wild played well enough to, and I don't want to say well enough to win because they didn't, or make it sound like there's a moral victory. But when you're watching a team play, you're looking for, is this sustainable? And some of the things you'll hear a coach say sometimes is, if we play like that all season, we're going to be just fine. Some nights the bounces don't go your way. Sometimes the other goalie makes some big stops. But if you look at it, the Pittsburgh game, the Wild were the better team on the ice. Jari played great, and they lost the game. Third period was very disappointing, but for the most part, over the course of the night, other than the third, they played well. They played well in the Winnipeg game. They had a great third period in the San Jose game. And so it was about 3 games in a period stretch where you'd say, if that's how the Wild play the rest of the way, they're going to be just fine. And so I don't think it was just against a depleted Vancouver team. I think it's a team starting to get back to their identity for how they want to play the game. I think a big part of that was putting the top 4 defensemen back together and just saying, we're going to ride you guys. We're going to be stable in our own zone. We're going to be efficient out of our zone. And if it means the third pair plays 9 minutes or 10 minutes or 11 minutes a night, that's the way it's going to be. And so I just think it was that. And, Gus made a couple stops when he had to. It didn't have to be spectacular, but made the saves he was supposed to make and outplayed Thatcher Demko that night. That's the kind of
Big
thing.
Time.
Yeah, I mean, but over the stretch before that, they had won once in 9 games, and in only one game had the Wild goaltender had more saves above expected than the opponent. It's hard to win when the other team's goalie is better every night. And it's hard to say it that way because it's not like you'd go back to games and say, that was a bad goal against Gus, should have had that one. That one was a soft one. It's just that the other goalie was playing better than him every single night. And now there was a night where that wasn't the case, and the Wild win the game 5-2.
Yeah, I'd agree. I wasn't enamored as much as you might have been with the Pittsburgh game. I thought in the second period Pittsburgh started to tilt it.
Yeah,
and
I thought
so
the
that to
second
me was
even.
disappointing.
The third was disappointing
Yeah.
to me. That was what was, and we can talk about that after you're done.
Yeah, but to the point you were making, like the one thing John Hines said after the Winnipeg game, that's absolutely true. And you hear this from coaches all the time, and you see it with our own eyes all the time, is a lot of times when you're on a long winning streak, your last couple games, you start to crack, but you're still playing well enough that you wind up almost stealing games. And a lot of times when you're in a huge funk, it's the opposite, where you start playing better than the other team, but you still can't break the seal. And I thought, even for parts of that Utah game, the San Jose game, the Winnipeg game, the Wild were starting to show signs of playing more like the team that we've grown accustomed to seeing. And the Pittsburgh game, I thought they took a step back. And because of that, I think it was really interesting the other night when we started to get kind of word that Jared Spurgeon was planning this team meeting for the morning of Friday before practice. And, after that game against Pittsburgh, a lot of times when there's a players only meeting, we've seen it last year in New York, we saw it in Philadelphia. It happens after the game. People are frustrated, they're angry, and they might say some things to tear the paint off the wall. And it might be some things that are kind of hollow, that go in one ear out the other because everybody's frustrated. And what was unique about this meeting was that the leaders really planned on what they were going to say in this meeting, but also the entire team knew that it was coming. So the players themselves that weren't leaders had a chance to think about stuff that they wanted to say. So as John Hines kind of said the other day, there was some substance to this meeting. There was an agenda in the meeting that everybody wanted to talk to. And again, if they take a step back against Nashville, it rings hollow. But then for them to go and show that identity of being a hardworking team, a physical team, a team that didn't show, as Kevin Gorg said, fragility against the
It's impressive. Gorg even knew what fragility meant.
Well, he said fragile. He didn't go with the ITY.
Yeah.
But anyway,
John
you know what I mean. Like, I just
him.
think it was a unique team meeting.
I agree, and I loved when I heard the story about it just for that reason, that it was come with ideas. It isn't just the heat of the moment, close the door after a game and a lot of yelling. This is, you got tonight to think about it.
And everybody could talk.
Right, which has been Jared Spurgeon's way since he's been the captain. He's been a guy, when you talk almost to a man inside their room, they talk about how it's not just a leadership group and a bunch of listeners. Instead, it's everybody's got a voice.
Remember training camp 2 years ago? So last year is when he had all the two-way guys that were living in the hotel over to his house.
Right.
For, like minor league guys that he was never going to see again in his life.
But wanted to make sure that he knew that they knew they were part of the team. And so real quickly, I just want to go back to that third period, because to me, what was eye-opening about that period was that the Wild were the better team. On paper, they were a better team. They had been a better team for 40 minutes. I agree in the second, Pittsburgh started to even it out. But if you looked at 40 minutes, the Wild had been the better team. It's a 1-1 game. And that was a period where if you're going good as a team, you come out and, hey, guys, win a period, win a game. And instead, they came out and were on their heels from the start. They just hadn't been in that spot. They had been chasing games most of the year. Now, all of a sudden, here's a game. It's there for the taking. Just go take it. And they didn't. So that I thought was a different spot than some of these other games. Slow starts had plagued them. Whatever the case was, this was a different spot. And so I thought it was a great time to have this meeting. And it was interesting. We were talking to John Hines a little bit today, and I'm not going to share a lot of the conversation because a lot of it's off the record. But one of the things that he was just kind of going down the roster, and he said, we don't have a lot of really big personality, outspoken guys on this team. And when he said it, I immediately started to think of the guys that aren't in that room right now.
Matt
Zuccarello, Zach Bogosian. Mm-hmm. Bogosian might be the most vocal defenseman. Zuccarello might be the most vocal forward, for sure in the top couple. And that's a big loss. So even though they're around the rink, it's not the same when you're not playing. And I think that sometimes gets overlooked. You can look on the ice and on paper at how does the lineup change when you put those guys in there. But when you take their personalities out of the room, that's a bigger impact than I think a lot of people realize.
Especially Zuccarello, because like Zuki, one, he has no problem saying anything to anybody. I remember that quote he gave me like after game 2 or 3 a couple of years ago, and he's like, we defend like a junior team. I mean, and when things are going tough, he will rally the troops. He's got that ability. I mean, how many times have we heard you hear stories about stuff that goes in the locker room, and it was Zuki sort of leading the quote unquote party in just getting this team back on track. And he's got a respect level to him like few players that the Wild have right now. So I think I totally agree with you. I think that's huge, and having him back in the lineup will be pretty big. And that leads to a question that I got that I've gotten many times, Anthony, the last couple of days, is that when Zuccarello comes back, how does the line shake out? Now, obviously injuries could happen in the interim. I still think, as Joe Smith and I have reported multiple times in the last 2 to 3 weeks, really starting 3 weeks ago in a column that I wrote when I sat down with Bill Guerin, he's been looking. I mean, he's making calls. I believe that he called Toronto and asked about Nick Robertson, and was basically led to believe that he is not available right now, that they have no interest in moving him. So he's starting to at least make those calls because he'd like to rattle the lineup. But, Zuccarello coming back, now suddenly you put him almost, I would think, immediately with Kirill. Now what that does is it creates a second line that's probably having Boldy and Johansson with, Rossi or Arsenac, however you want to play it. And then you now move Tarasenko to the third line, and now you bring Hinostroza maybe to the fourth line, or even you could have Foligno. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be multiple ways that they could do it. But suddenly the domino effect by Zuccarello coming back in the lineup gets players into, maybe more appropriate spots, but also maybe adds offense to the bottom six that right now they just do not have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
right. It's a good problem to have. Tarasenko's game the other night was the first time that this would have even been a question.
Right.
Because prior to that, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I still think it is. I think when Zuccarello comes back, Johansson's been, number one, he's been the Wild's best forward. And we're going to talk about this a little bit on our show tomorrow night, that wherever he's played in the lineup, that line has been the team's best line. His numbers over the last 4 games are the best on the team in terms of attempts for, shots for, high danger chances for, expected goals for when he's on the ice. And The second thing to remember is when he first came to the Wild the first time, remember how good the line was with he, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek? Mm-hmm. He had 18 points in 20 games. A lot of people around the league were saying it was the best they had seen him play in years. So I think that's the first shot you take is throw him back with those guys and see if you can't develop a second scoring line because frankly, Matt Boldy hasn't driven that line since he was split up from Kirill Kaprizov. But the Wild know that if they're going anywhere, you can't have those two guys on the same line full time. So put Johansson there, put Zuccarello back with Kaprizov and Rossi, put Tarasenko down in your bottom six, add Nico Sturm to that bottom six, and suddenly you've got a lineup that looks a lot different than what you have right now.
How do you think Tarasenko would handle that, Anthony?
I don't know. And he didn't handle it particularly well last year if you just look at the numbers and the production. And that would, I mean, I think the first move would be to put him on the third line, not the fourth, and at least give him the first crack to be the extra guy there, which means Hinostroza goes down, and Hinostroza's been a good player. His really speed has impacted the game quite often, but maybe that gives you a fourth line then that has Sturm in the middle and Hinostroza with some speed on one of the wings, Trenyon on the other. I mean, just think about how much deeper that lineup looks. And if Tarasenko, John Hines has always been pretty quick to point out that he thinks he's been a real responsible player. If he can be that, Hartman and Foligno you're not exactly playing with a couple slouches. I mean, you're not playing with guys who are going to compete for the Art Ross Trophy or anything, but you are playing with guys who have some skill, but also have some grit.
How are you celebrating Sunday's game against Calgary? You going to wear your Marcus Johansson jersey? 1,000 games on Sunday.
I was wondering why I was going to be celebrating a game against Calgary.
You're going to be out there. You're going to present him with the silver stick.
Well, I know you've turned this into something that
let's remember, I am the one that wrote the column saying that Bill Guerin had to re-sign him after that Boldy and Eriksson Ek line. So,
well, but all I've done is defended the fact that he's a worthwhile ad at the price the Wild have added him, and I'm going to make you do this if we're going to continue to have the conversation. Is that last year when he was on a $2 million deal, and I said, go find a guy other than entry level guys that for $2 million over the last 2 years has produced more than this. And I know there are some, but it's a short list. It isn't like there's 50 guys out there that were making less than $2 million that scored 35 to 40 points a year. They just don't. He's just worth he's worth what they pay for him. And
you're going to get him like a 3-year extension with a no move.
I should call him right now and ask him if he needs representation. But I just think the number of things that coaches see in players that the average fan doesn't, that even like you and I who are around the team and around the league a lot don't appreciate. There's a reason why the coaching staff every year when free agents dominoes would start to fall, they'd say, we'd rather have Johansson back. It's because they trust him. And he defends more with his skating than people give him credit for. They all think, he's not physical. That means he doesn't defend. He defends. There's a reason why his analytic numbers have been really good. He's just a much better player than a lot of people give him credit for. And everybody wants to talk about what he doesn't do. Yes, he doesn't score 60 points. He doesn't score 30 goals, and he never will again. But he's a really good player.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, and to be fair, is that obviously I respect him as a player. I guess my only point with you the last several times we've almost had this, to me, it's almost become like a shtick. I actually love dealing with Johansson. He's a super nice guy, very smart, all that stuff. Is that just the team itself, is that to have a guy in the top 6 that only produces that much, I think says more about the roster construction than anything else. But I'm with you right now. To me, if Zuccarello is back, Johansson should stay in the top 6 based on the way that he's playing right now. This is as good as we've seen him play since that time that he was with Joel Eriksson Ek and Matt Boldy. We'll be right back on Worst Seats in the House. Aquarius Home Services takes water treatment to an all-star level with the Connecticut water treatment system. They remove the worry, and you just turn your water on and know that it's safe for your entire family. It takes care of problems like iron and rust, hard water that leaves those spots and buildup in your appliances. Contaminants like lead, arsenic, and even those forever chemicals absolutely vanish. And here's the really cool thing. It costs you nothing to get a water analysis and to discover what's going on with your home's water. A trained specialist comes to your home, tests it right there, and goes over all the results right in front of you. It's like a chemistry experiment. If there are issues, they provide options to solve the problems. And right now, you can get up to 25% off a Connecticut whole home water treatment system and 6 months, no payments, and no interest financing. Be sure to contact Aquarius for how all this works because the results are life-changing. Last week, Mark came to my house and changed the filters in both my water softener and my Connecticut drinking system for the hat trick. Worry-free water to drink, worry-free water for cleaning, laundry, showers, dishes, and more. And all this with on-demand efficiency that uses zero electricity. It's that simple. Aquarius is just a click away at AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And don't forget to mention that Russo sent you. Deer hunting season is here, and it's time to own your odds with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. With the Hunt app, you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, tracks, and much more, all at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt. That's onxmaps.com/hunt to sign up today.
Hey, Mark Rosen here for Stretch Lab. I had my introductory first stretch when I was visiting my relatives in New Jersey. I went to the local stretch lab there for my 50-minute session. I felt so good afterwards. And when I came back, I immediately called that stretch lab in Eden Prairie. They have locations all over the Twin Cities where my nephew first signed up. I've been hooked ever since. There are locations I mentioned throughout the Twin City area, but I stuck with my Tuesday morning appointment with Jason to get my 50-minute stretch in as part of my schedule. It's like a meditation session. He stretches out my legs, my hips, my back, my neck, my traps, all of it. And I take some deep breaths and I feel like a new man every single time I leave. My nephew's in his late 20s. I'm a little bit older, but it doesn't matter. Stretching is so important in our daily routine. Having an expert do the work is the only way to go. My advice, give Stretch Lab a chance to improve your overall health. Check out a location near you.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta back here, Worst Seats in the House. November 18th is our next live show. That's at Splitrocks. November 18th at Splitrocks, 7 p.m. is the time. Anthony, I did a story recently just on the blue line and just the lack of physicality. And, I guess, is this a concern for you? Like the way that from a physicality standpoint, in this new sort of age where, you look at Florida's blue line, you look at a lot of the Stanley Cup blue lines, they're not just big, but they're physical.
I think it's concerning, but not necessarily. I wouldn't say it's one that I feel like they have to revamp the blue line. Because number one of the more physical guys has been out for a long time, and that's Bogosian. You put Bogosian back in there, and suddenly the blue line looks a lot sturdier. Brock Faber's a strong player, but you wouldn't say he's necessarily what you'd call a physical player, but he doesn't get pushed around. Mm-hmm. Jake Middleton's kind of the same way. I think he could be more physical. I think he's at his best when he's more physical, but he's plenty strong. And, Brodin, the guys down the left, Brodin and Bouillon, they're going to defend with their skating. That's just the way they defend. So I think the guys that are physical need to just play to their identity more. It echoes a little bit the whole feeling with the team. I think Marcus Foligno can be more physical. He's at his best when he's more physical.
He's gotten there last couple
games. He has. But I remember a couple times a few years ago where I think it was Dean Evison. It might have been Bruce. I don't recall, but they were we just went to Marcus and said, all I want you to think about tonight is how many hits you can get. Don't think about anything else. And all of a sudden, he's creating scoring chances with his physical play. And sometimes you just need to get back to that and to hear that. And remember when it was the grief line, that was all they did, was throw the puck into the corner and go to work. And they would just hammer people. And it's not because they were piling up the Cal Clutterbuck kind of hit totals where it was just skate around the rink like a wild man trying to hit everything in sight, but it was to hit with a purpose. So Yeah, I mean, I think they have to be. I think they've been beaten a couple times by not being able to keep other teams from getting inside defensively. But I think you have to evaluate that more now that the top four are back together and when Bogosian's on the third pair. Then take a look at it and see if we feel like they're not physical enough.
On that point of the top four being together, I've gotten a lot of questions about the rationale of putting them together and playing the two rookies together. And I've written the rationale a couple times. And so, I don't really understand why this is still a question, but the reality was, to be blunt, I mean, John Hines would never say it like this, but it was to get Jared Spurgeon and Jake Middleton away from Z Boyam and David Juracek, respectively. I mean, I think they just felt like it was the same reason why they put Faber back on the power play. It was to get them feeling comfortable again. And they were eating minuses and they weren't playing well. And it was just, they decided, let's play the rookies together, try to give them sheltered minutes, and let's see it work. Let's see if it works. And so far, it feels like the team has started to play better, and certainly they have started to play better. I think Jared's been one of their better defensemen the last 3 or 4 games. The question is, how long can this continue, Anthony? Because especially with Zeev in particular, because he's no longer really getting a lot of power play time because he's been taken off the first unit, and Boldy spends so much time on the ice. Zeev's the one that changes for Boldy. So the other times, last game, a couple times, Boyam, people thought he was taken off the power play. He was never taken off the power play. He just didn't get to come on for Boldy. And then there was one power play where there was 11 seconds left. And because there was 11 seconds left, John threw out Jonas Brodin. How long can that continue? Because again, the reason why they put Z Boyam in the playoffs is because they're like, oh, if we're going to play him, we got to put him on the top unit. Well, now he's almost not getting any power play time.
Yeah, I think there's other things that he needs to perfect in his game. Mm-hmm. I mean, the power play, he's going to be a quarterback of a number one power play throughout his career. I really believe that. And I haven't lost any optimism on what his upside is as a player. These are the lumps you take when you're a young defenseman. When you talk to coaches around the league, they would always talk about, for defensemen, you got to see them play 200 games in the NHL before it's just such a different world. No matter what league you've played before, going into the NHL, it's a different size, pace, speed, strength, all of that. And it takes guys a couple hundred games most of the time. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, you talk to coaches. I remember going way back to talking to Rick Wilson when he was here, a defensive coaching mind that I respected as much as anybody. And he said, I don't even want to talk to somebody about what a guy's upside is until he's played 200 games in the NHL. And so I think with Zeev, you've got to see some progress. Right now I don't really know what you can do with Bogosian out. Because if you had Bogosian healthy, I think we would have already seen a third pair of Hunt and Bogosian and Juracek and Boyam both pulled from a lineup.
So you don't think it would be Boyam Bogosian? You think it would? Yeah.
I think ultimately it would be, but I think there would have been at least a night or two where it would have been Hunt and Bogosian.
And Juracek and Iowa.
Juracek, well, or at least in the press box for a night. And
well, remember, they sent Juracek down, and then that night, Bogosian got hurt. So I think we know what their plan was there.
For sure. And I just think you would have seen that move. Because right now, in order to make that move, if you put Hunt in the lineup, I think right now the first guy to come out would be Juracek. But at some point, you can pull either one of those guys. But if you pull Juracek, now you get two lefties on the third set. I don't even know if Boyam has played much on his offside.
I don't think you want to mess with him there.
Right now, we're trying to simplify his game. The last thing you want to do is add something to it. But they might have to do that because I also think they feel like they want to get Hunt into a game. So somehow, some way, you've got to find a way to get him into a game.
The most disappointing part of that Drew O'Connor's first goal the other night was I thought, Boyam, what a great shift in the offensive zone until it wasn't, right? I mean, he threw kind of a meatball to Tarasenko. He couldn't handle it. And then just on the back check, he didn't sort it out. And, when the only thing that I would say that happened there, if you look at the replay, is that that maybe Faber should have recognized that Boyam was messing up and gone to the middle. And then that might have, but then then all of a sudden there could be a pass back to the back door where Faber was. So it just shows you that when one person is sort of out of sorts and not making the right reads, how it can mess things up. But as you said, that's just the lumps you take until he's coached and until you experience something.
But I will say on that play, what was most disturbing to me was his pace coming back.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Didn't have anything to do with whether he sorted it out properly or not. If he was at least going 100 miles an hour on the way back. And that was the first time I've seen anything from him.
Yeah.
All of the mistakes are going to be made, but at least they're made at full speed. And those are things like, okay, wait, we can't spin back this way with the puck in this spot. But there's never been a play where I looked at it and said, oh, he looked like he just lacked effort. Right. That one, it looked like he lacked effort.
The only thing I wonder, and again, until these mistakes happen and you experience it on the ice, it's hard to really replicate it in practice. The only thing I want, because you're not the first person, a couple of people on Twitter said that too, that he was sort of lollygagging back. But the other thing is, like, from his standpoint, he's 19 years old. Maybe he's just assuming, well, since Boldy was covering for me at the very beginning, then I should sort of try to find a forward here to cover. And he just wasn't making the right read well. But again, I'm just guessing. And it's hard to imagine to me that he was lacking the effort maybe it was just him not being in that experience before,
which is all valid.
Yeah.
And I actually was talking to Vinny about this, and he made an analogy to when I was coaching defensive backs this is high school football. It's a smaller scale thing. But we always use the term to our guys that there is nothing in our playbook that the correct way to execute a play is at 75% speed. So even if you're wrong, at least go wrong 100% that way. And maybe you're going to be right. You never know. Yeah. Or maybe you disrupt something else, but the solution is never, I'm not sure where I should go, so I think I'll just go slower.
Right.
And I don't think it was a great look just to see him kind of pull up and coast coming in. But like I said, I want to stress that that's the first time I've seen a play from him where I thought, boy, the problem here is that it looked like he wasn't going 100%.
Yeah. But look, 2 weeks ago, you and I don't know, I know you don't pay attention to Twitter, but you and I got slaughtered for our Zeev conversation when we kind of said that at even strength, this was their biggest concern. And one reason why they were lowering his minutes is that, like, he still needs to be coached in that way. And sometimes he plays, even strength, like power plays and things like that. Like, this is just the stuff that happens. Now, like, look, you have to take your lumps when you have these type of things in here, but what contradicts everything is the team's expectations this year. And the fact that, like, look, this is not just play the kids, play Liam Ogren, play Hunter Haight, play Riley Height. And if they finish 32nd in the league, their goal is still to make the playoffs and continue to be a contender. And until they're not, those are the expectations.
They are. And so I think there are two reasons why it's tougher here. And Ryan Carter and I were talking about this the other day. We made the comparison to Lane Hudson last year. And remember how Montreal just ate those minuses for a long time, but kept running them out there saying, this is our future. The difference there was they came into the season with very little expectation of making the playoffs. Now they wound up, Hudson got better as the second half came around. The East was mediocre enough at the bottom where it didn't even take 90 points to get in. So that was a different spot. Minnesota comes into this season with the expectation to get in the playoffs, so it's different. You're not just coming in saying, we're a couple of years away from trying to make a playoff run. Who cares if we lose some games right now? The second thing is that the start they got off to. If the Wild are 9-3 right now, you can say, all right, we can give a little more leash and we can let him learn on the job, because even if there's a mistake and it costs us a goal or costs us a game, we're not right now dealing with zero margin for error. But when the rest of the team struggles out of the gate, you don't have the luxury of saying, hey, we're going to just throw this guy some minutes, even though he hasn't earned them yet. And just hope that, because yes, those guys all need experience to get better. There's no question about that. But again, I'll liken it to, let's say you've got a guy we were talking about this again in terms of our football analogy. You got a sophomore who you look at and you say, this guy's got the athletic ability. He's going to be better than any of our seniors when his career is over. He's not yet, but he's going to get there. How do you ease that guy in? How do you look a senior guy in the eye? How do you look Jake Middleton in the eye and say, Jake, right now you're better than him, but we think someday he's going to be better, so we're going to give him all your minutes right now and just see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's a tough sell.
Where you got your earning mentality. Coaching high school football.
Yeah, exactly. But we always tried to find a way to ease those guys in. Mm-hmm. So what we did is, well, let's put them in spots where it's simple for him. He understands the call. It's a specific call where there's not maybe as complex of a read. He's in a spot where he's covering that guy instead of their superstar. Those kind of things. Get him onto the field, get game experience, but try to shelter him as long as you can, knowing that maybe by the end of the year, he might be as good as those guys. And for sure in future years, he's going to be. But it was always hard to just look at somebody and say, yeah, I know right now you're better. But someday he's going to be better, so we're going to put him in your place.
Sunday night, I was watching the Islanders-Columbus game. Have you watched Matthew Schaefer, by the way? This kid is a freaking stud. Holy moly. 18 years old, can still skates like the wind, defends, has 5 goals now to that game.
He's a special player, no doubt. In the Wild, we'll get to see him on this road trip.
Too. Yeah. If you don't know the story of Matthew, besides being the number 1 overall pick, his mom passed away of cancer, and the Folignos were a big part of being mentors to him throughout that process. And as you know, the Folignos lost their mom many years ago, Janice. So, Anthony, God, what did I want to ask? Oh, you know what we've been talking about high school so much. I wanted to ask you about, or talk to you about the 25th anniversary coming up Tuesday night. Nicholas Backstrom, Devin Dubnyk, and Josh Harding coming back. On Saturday, I got to spend some time with Josh and Edina for a big story that I wrote in Tuesday's Athletic. Feels great, looks great. Looks great. I mean, you'd never know that he's still dealing with this incredible illness that turned his life and his career upside down in multiple sclerosis. And hopefully everyone reads the story. The quotes are gripping. I had no idea, Anthony, just the stuff that he was dealing with behind the scenes, the MS attacks, the stuff that he would have to go through after games, during games that he was dealing with. And then, his career ends in a hospital bed, essentially in Charlotte, when he was trying to make his comeback in the 2014-15 season. But man, it was a really good conversation. He's coaching Edina High School for the last 10 years. They've won 2 state titles, 1 runner-up. I talked to Mason West, the Chicago Blackhawks first-round pick that's going to be quarterbacking Edina in the quarterfinals against Eden Prairie on Friday night about, because Josh changes the forwards and coaches the forwards for Edina. And I got to talk to Mason yesterday on the phone about just what Josh has meant to his career, not just hockey, but football and life. Really fun story. Hopefully everybody reads it, but it's going to be cool to see all these guys back on Tuesday.
It's the goalie theme night, so it'll be kind of cool. And I talked to Josh quite a bit. We've got some MS in our family. My brother has it. My mom has it, and they're all different. But I remember talking to my brother about it early after he had been diagnosed. And one of the things that triggered it was when your body got overheated. Yeah. And I remember then asking Josh about it, and he had the same kind of impact. Well, imagine where maybe anywhere in sports are you most likely to overheat? In the set of goalie pads has got to be close to the top of the list. And so it was amazing what he was dealing with at the end of his career. And then all the goalies, it'll be a lot of fun to go down that kind of memory lane with just the goaltenders. And we've got one of them as part of our broadcast crew now, and Al Stalock. But Devin Dubnyk had that great run with the Wild, and Nicholas Backstrom, probably the greatest Wild goaltender. It'll be fun.
Certainly the most wins. They're all great talkers too. Josh was an awesome quote. Devin was the best quote and loved to shoot the breeze even on game days. And Backstrom was secretly hilarious. But you do kind of wonder of what Nicholas Backstrom would be like in today's day and age with cameras in the locker room, getting the pregame game, getting the warm ups before. I remember that one game in Colorado where I made eye contact with him before a game on one of his turtle walks, and he gave up 7. And I think that he basically let me know never to look at him again before a game. It really will be fun. And these 25th anniversary nights have been a blast. Seeing Gabrick and Bouchard and Veilleux and Ralston back a couple of weeks ago, seeing Jacques and Bob Mason and Doug Risebrough and Mike Ramsey and Mario Tremblay back. The Wild have one more that they'll be wearing these awesome jerseys. I'll tell you, I didn't cover the game the other night, Anthony, but those jerseys, I am sold on them. I remember when they first came out, I was kind of like underwhelmed. I thought it was like a safe pick from them. But now especially when you see it in correlation with the 25th anniversary guys coming back, and that these essentially were their first jerseys, but on TV, these jerseys pop with the gold and
there's more gold in them than the original back
Yep.
jerseys. Now, the only thing I will say is it was a TV guy's nightmare.
Is it?
They were impossible to read.
The old ones or these?
The ones, the 25th anniversary ones.
So these ones,
These
okay.
right now. And that night against Winnipeg, with Winnipeg's red on blue, which was nearly impossible to see as well. I left that game. I was talking to our coordinating producer from FanDuel. We went out for dinner the next night. And I said, I got to tell you, like I had just gone to the eye doctor, gotten a new prescription about a week before. And this was the first game that I was wearing the new contacts, and they're great in everyday life. I got up there and I was like, I can't read these numbers. And I was half convinced it was my prescription. Then we did the game the other night and everything was great. But
interesting.
So it was.
Well, I watched your game on TV that night and I didn't notice. So you did a good job.
Well, I
would tell you otherwise if I thought you did a crappy job.
And I made a couple mistakes that night. There were a couple extenuating circumstances too, but the numbers for the Wild were big so that you couldn't really tell them apart quite so well. And there's always an issue. For me, Hinostroza Hartman is always a tough one. They both end in 8. They're both right-handed. They both kind of look the same.
They do look exactly the same.
And they're on the same line. So there are a lot of times where the puck will go to one of them and you're quickly looking to try to find the other one because I don't know for sure. I can only see the 8. That night, Yurov and Rossi were almost impossible to tell apart. 22-23, both lefties. And there were a couple shifts where it would be the first touch and I'd be like, who else is on the ice? Because if it's Kaprizov, and one time I saw Kaprizov, so I just went with Rossi, and it turned out it was Yurov.
I did see that one.
Kaprizov
I
just
kind of
got
actually
an extra
remember that
shift
one
with the fourth one.
Yeah, because it's funny that you said that because you said Rossi, right? I was thinking, I'm like, oh, Rossi. When I saw Yurov, I'm like, oh, Rossi must have went for a line change. Because I was watching on TV.
It was because I looked over and saw Kaprizov, and I was like, well, it's got to be Rossi because Kaprizov's on the ice, but he was just getting an extra shift with the fourth line. And then Winnipeg, all 3 of their left shot D end in a 4. It was 44 was Morrissey, 64 was Stanley, and 24 was Fleury. Now, Stanley was a little bit bigger, so you could sometimes pick him up right away. But the other guys, there were so many times where I looked and I'm like, I got to find the partner because it could be any one of the 3 guys.
That's funny.
And it was more challenging that night than any night I've had in a long time trying to read those jersey numbers.
Interesting. Let's take a quick break.
It's time for change. Experience better banking and put your financial goals in motion with Royal Credit Union. It's time to get more from your checking account, upgrade your vehicle, or finally build your dream home. Royal offers the financial solutions you need and the advice you can trust to plan for what's next. Better banking is one change away. It's time to switch to Royal Credit Union. Get started at rcu.org/time. Insured by NCUA. Loan subject to credit approval. Equal housing opportunity.
And I want to tell you about Twill in the Edina Galleria. Scott Dayton's Twill in the Edina Galleria. TwillMN.com is the website. I'm wearing my Johnny O hat. I'm wearing one of my many Peter Millar shirts. Johnny O and Peter Millar are 2 of my favorite brands out of Twill in the Edina Galleria. When I've been going to Wolves games lately, I've been wearing my Dingman shoes. I've been wearing my Brax pants, my either Peter Millar or Johnny O shirts, pullovers. The Wolves games are weird because they're really cold, and then they turn on the fire jets before the game and singe your eyebrows. You need to be prepared for all kinds of different temperatures in that building. And I just use all my Twill stuff. And as we do more shows here at TalkNorth.com on video, I'll be wearing more Twill stuff because it's really simple. I don't always try to look good. Sometimes I'm very happy being a slob.
and I wear old sweats and t-shirts. If I'm trying to look presentable in any way, Talk North meetings, sponsor meetings, big games, going out in public, going out to dinner, I just put on something I bought at Twill. It's just that simple. If I put on something I bought at Twill, I'm going to look good. I'm playing a Randy Shaver's golf tournament on Monday. I'm going to wear Twill stuff to that too. Golf, walk around town, dinner, whatever. TwillMN.com. Go to Twill in the United Galleria. They're laid back. They love talking sports. They're nice people. Tell them we sent you. You'll have a good time, and you'll end up walking out with something great.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
Back here, Worst Seats in the House, Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, final segment of the show. November 18th at Splitrocks, 7 p.m. is our next live show. Did Vinny have any thoughts for us tonight? Or
let me check. I know it was asked.
Here, let me ask you a first Twitter question here.
Okay.
Marty, mutual friend of ours, goes, has Panther been going to the tanning booth? I'm aware of his Italian roots, but he looks like a billionaire who's spent the last 67 months on a beach in the Amalfi Coast. Have you been... And then he asked me if I've ever been to a tanning bed, which I have not. I couldn't even fit one.
I bet it's been, boy, I got to think about the years now. I'm going to say it's been 30, for sure 30 years or more since I've been to a tanning bed. It was early 90s. I went a few times. I remember I was covering high school hockey, and I was doing a ton of games. And I remember one night I was on like our Prep Sports Weekly set, and I saw myself the next day, and I looked like a corpse. I was white with black circles under my eyes. And so then I did. No, this is Italian blood, and it's been some time on the golf course that I'm kind of hoping carries on here for a little while, because I think I played my last round of golf for the season today. So the tan might start to diminish.
On the Twins broadcast once, I remember that you looked like you had, that was like after like a weekend of golf tournament. Remember that one? You looked like you were...
Like I'd been on a beach for a while.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I have a tendency, I get color quickly when I go out in the sun, I just remember Kevin Gorg might have been working with me on the Prep Sports show back then, but I remember one time seeing a delayed broadcast of our show. It wasn't the best lit studio in the world, but I looked like death warmed over. So I was like, I think I got to go get a little color in myself. And for that winter, maybe a couple winters, I'd go to the tanning booth at Lifetime Fitness sometimes, but it's been a long time.
Did you find if Vinny had any thoughts or no?
Vinny's only thought, he had one thought on what we thought the line combos would be once the players come back. And he had another one just about the young D, saying, how long a leash do you give these players before you send them both to Iowa and just roll the dice with more veteran third pair guys? Now, that can only happen once Bogosian's back, because right now they only have one more defenseman on the roster. But these are both things we have discussed already. I think the first thing they do is put Tarasenko on the third line with Foligno and Hartman. I haven't really pushed Hines too much about that. But I also think it's interesting when you go back over time and how many times a player, when all of a sudden there's some internal competition, it brings out the best in a guy. And I don't really believe that Vladimir Tarasenko all of a sudden had a fire lit underneath him because Matt Zuccarello is getting closer to his return and he's wondering if he's going to get bumped down in the lineup. But it is a coincidence that was by far his best game of the year and most noticeable game of the year offensively.
Yeah. Also, his family was in town, so that was cool. I wrote about it today. Tarasenko's stepson, his oldest son, who's only 16 years younger than him, is a goalie for the Junior Stars, and he was in town in Blaine.
Yeah, I think he was at the game in Dallas.
Yeah,
when the Wild played in Dallas.
Yes. So anyway, so that and did he score in Dallas too?
I don't remember.
Yeah, because he was saying that he was his good luck charm. So anyway, I think that we saw much better Vladimir Tarasenko yesterday, and that's the one the Wild would love to see for the rest of the year. Somebody asked me if the Wild could potentially be. You see today they announced 2027 Stadium Series at AT&T in Dallas. That'll be big.
I didn't see that.
And somebody asked if the Wild could potentially be the opponent. I mean, they could potentially be, but I could tell you that that's not in the works as of now. But there is something else the Wild are maybe in the works that'll be pretty soon announced if it happens with the league, but it has nothing to do with an outdoor game. Although, man, I'd love, how fun would it be if the Wild were like the Heritage Classic up in Winnipeg next year? That'd be cool, but it's not going to be them. But that'd be neat.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Minus we've seen it. The Wild can play in that. They don't play well in that.
That to me would be fun. Some of the other outdoor games have lost a little of their zip for me. But as we've talked about before on this show, then once you see it and you're in the community and you see the kind of impact it had, I can see why they continue to do them.
The Wild can't win at American Airlines Center. They might as well try it at the Cowboys Stadium.
That's true.
Well, I might as well get a change of venue. Somebody also asked that, what's the status of Leo Ogren in Iowa? Any chance he's nearing a call-up? Aaron said he scored the game-winning goal in overtime. But as we're talking, when Zuccarello gets back, they're starting to get too many bodies. I mean, it is starting to look like Danilo Yurov. Because, again, if just look at the lines that we're talking about now, the way Hinostroza is playing, he's probably on the fourth line right wing. Well, when Sturm gets back, which is, I think he's eyeballing around December 1st. He has started to lightly skate, I've been told. That could spell the end of Yurov here. I mean, if they're healthy. But as we're talking, when Zuccarello gets back, now all of a sudden Johansson's probably going to the second line. Tarasenko is now going to the third line. Hinostroza is now going to the fourth line. Somebody's coming out of the lineup, and so I don't see where. And I don't see how Ogren's finding a spot unless they're hurt right now. Yeah,
and I think that's the first shot that all these guys get. Hinostroza has to keep playing the way he's playing, and Liam Ogren's time is going to come. But let's say Tarasenko goes a month and just isn't producing 5-on-5. Well, then there's your shot and come up. And I think we're also talking about the likelihood of 9 forwards all staying healthy for a month, which hasn't happened here very often over the last few years.
Maddie asks, how does the trade block, quote unquote trade block, actually look for GMs? How do other GMs know who another team is trying to get rid of? Do players always know they're on the block? So the way it works, I mean, usually sometimes there is like a sort of a mass email that goes out to every GM, like, hey, this guy's available, text message, things like that. But mostly it is from calling and talking. Bill Guerin is making a ton of calls in the last couple of weeks to just try to get the lay of the land of who could potentially be available. We've reported that right now there aren't a lot of top 6 guys available. Now, Bill Guerin tomorrow could trade for one of probably a dozen third or fourth liners in this league. But for what the Wild need and the impact that they would need to, right some of the, cure some of the ills that's been going on now, it just doesn't make sense to go add. I think I reported a couple of weeks ago that Nola Cherry is somebody that the Wild called on. I mean, that's not turning the tables here in Minnesota. David Kampf is somebody that wants out of Toronto. That's not changing anything in Minnesota. I don't know if he's ever scored 10 goals in the league. Nick Robertson might.
Maybe. But if you're looking for a top 6 guy, some of those first guys you mentioned, I'm not sure they do more for you than than giving an opportunity to Hunter Haight or Liam Ogren to come up and play there. Both of those guys, I think, are in the right spot right now playing in Iowa. I think Haight, I looked the other day, might have had 2 goals, I think, in 7 games down there or something. And not that is meaning, if he's only got 2 in 7 games in the AHL, then he's not, forget it. But, I think they saw enough from him early this year to believe that he's got a chance to help hthem. But right now, he's not going to supplant one of your current top 6 guys.
Right. Ben Stofferon asks, what's going on with Damon Hunt? I mean, basically what's going on with him is that I think that, I asked John Hines, I think you were there for that a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago. I asked him when he's going to get him in or how he's going to try to get him in. And he basically said that, there could come a point where he gives him a look and tries to get him in the lineup, and not everybody, even the veteran guys, are to have their spots anointed or cemented in the lineup. But right now it's been so long since he's played. I think it's hard to get him in. And the one thing that I wrote about in the Insider 2 weeks ago in The Athletic is, could the Wild at one point maybe send him on a conditioning stint? You could play up to 5 games of 14 days down in the minors. The problem is that he requires waivers, and the league might scoff at the Wild wanting to do this. Last year, there was a player in Edmonton that was a healthy scratch literally every game all year, and they never once tried or sent him to the minors. And what the Wild don't know is, did the league prevent that? So in other words, if Damon Hunt were to go to the minors, normally the way it would work is he'd need to get put on waivers, and then Columbus would get first crack at him because the Wild took him and prevented him from getting down, clearing waivers there. So they could send him right to Cleveland. So Columbus could actually complain to the league, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. They're healthy scratching him. They're just trying to prevent putting him on waivers because we take him. You can't just let him go on a conditioning stint. So the league would have to essentially approve the fact that Damon Hunt would go to the Iowa just to get games. I feel bad for Hunt. I'm sure he's very happy making his NHL salary right now, Anthony. But this is a young kid that this hurts his development. I mean, this isn't like Nate Prosser sitting in the press box for half a season. This is somebody that is a young guy and needs to be playing. So this is probably not good for anybody. And at some point, they're going to probably have to address the situation with the league to see if they can at least get him down to the minors for a couple weeks. But we'll see how that all comes about. Homer, we'll put this up to. We'll put this up to both of us. He asked, Russo, what has been the biggest change in the NHL since you began covering the league? For example, I remember stories from early North Stars that players regularly smoke cigarettes between periods, something that would be shocking in today's game play. That would be shocking today. I have covered players in the NHL, a lot of Russian players in the NHL that used to smoke darts. As I say, sometimes between periods. One superstar that I covered used to smoke cigarettes. What are the biggest changes that you've I mean, the way the guys travel now, totally different. The Wild travel first class, stay at first class hotels.
We actually might be the premier travel team in the league right now.
Unreal.
Dominic Henning, our travel guy, we've upgraded a few hotels. We just experienced
the New York one.
The New York one was terrific. But I've
been to that one because that's where the Panthers always had their off day. Like that's where they stayed during the playoffs. Great. That place is unreal.
We stayed at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia, which was unreal. I know you and I had gone there once a couple of years ago up to the rooftop bar, but staying in there was fabulous. And this year, I mean, I say we only because I'm on the plane, but we eat and like the food and we're treated like kings. We really are. And so the travels is a part of it. I mean, I even think about the early years. That was how I got the name Panther, was because in the early years on the charter, Jared Spurgeon and Justin Falk sat in the row right in front of me. And every time I'd walk on the plane, Justin Falk would hum the Pink Panther theme song. And it just caught on, and they started calling me Panther, and then everybody around started calling me Panther. And I mean, they were back in the Peasantville because they were the youngest players on the team. So that's changed, and the fact that none of those guys have roommates like they always used to, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a
big one. But you remember he used to play 600 games in 10 years.
Right. But I think it's some just the way, one of the things that's changed for me anyway is the morning skates have changed, where they were very rarely optional in the early years that I was covering the games. Now it's an exception rather than a rule if both teams are taking full morning skates, where it used to be you'd hit there, the home team at 10:30, visiting team at 11:30, and we'd be down there for a couple of hours because the visiting team would go out for their, we skate at Tria, they skate at Grand Casino Arena, so you don't even see the visiting team skate very often in the morning. And
the writers. So I've been going over there a lot for morning skates, but like because a lot of times when the home team does not skate in a building, the visiting team will go on early. That has been hellacious so far. Yeah. Because all of a sudden, like if you're covering the Wild skate, if they were skating at 11:30, we'd have plenty of time to get over. But the other day, the Penguins went on early because the Wild weren't skating there. So now we're all like sprinting over there. It's been a little bit of a mess to get both teams. Plus, by the way, the Wild are not a good home team anymore, and a lot of that change has really started when they started moving everything over to Tria. So for the writers' sake, I hope they eventually go back. Dylan asks, how confident are you that the Mammoth are going to be a playoff team? If they do, it seems inevitable that there is one spot left in the West. How confident are you that the Wild will finish ahead of Seattle, Vancouver, and LA? Anthony?
I think Utah is for real in that I think they'll be a contender. And I don't think they're a contender to make a run in the West right now. I think they're still probably a little too reliant on youth for that. But it'll be an interesting thing to see how long they can sustain it. And if you remember, there's been teams that have sprinted from the gates, and then because of that, you're playing with house money all year, so the pressure is low. And this team isn't one that came in with the burden of, we expect to be in the playoffs this year. But I still don't think, I'm not totally sold on Vejmelka yet in net. Yeah, I think you have to see it for a full season from him. We haven't seen that yet. I think their defensive core is a little thin. We'll have to see that. And I think right now they're pretty top heavy with their scoring.
Yeah.
So but that's not.
I like them, and the other thing I like or know is that Bill Armstrong is going to be looking for a big fish. Yep. So he's going to be, they have a lot of cap space. They are going to be a good team and tough to handle for a while. Jimmy asks, are we going to see the secondary markets hit sub $20 this season? I will say, Anthony, I was a little a couple of the games on this homestand, I had never seen as many empty seats in the upper deck as we've seen the other night. I know it was 6 p.m. game and Game 7 of the World Series, but boy, oh boy, Anthony, the fans are starting to prove it with their wallet.
It hasn't been full, no, for sure. and even in past years where there have been some nights where you knew there were some no-shows, you could tell by the way the upper deck was full that the tickets had probably been sold and just some people weren't coming, which is not necessarily, I should say it is probably less concerning, but it's still concerning. But yeah, I think this is indicative of the way the markets go right now. When you're in a market that has all the major sports teams like the Twin Cities have, if your team doesn't look like a contender, people spend their money somewhere else.
And the other thing that really hurts the Wild is that it's at home, where they just haven't been as good really the last 3 years. But they just have not been really quality home team. I'm going to ask you this question and let you answer it because I see that it comes from Mountain Life 17. I know just based on the way that he tweets you that he's a Johnny, but he goes, I know Carrillo is doing well in the points category, but he seems off. Passes are obviously inaccurate, but more than that, his usually dynamic skating and puck protection seems off too. Why? Do you agree? And be nice to him because he's a Johnny.
Yeah, I'm confused about how you'd know how this guy tweets to me.
Because he'll tweet both of us, and he always ends it with like "Go Johnnies" or something. So,
all right,
yeah.
Well, Go Johnnies, number one. So he's probably a really smart guy. I don't think Carrillo has looked on top of his game, and I think we've seen it over his career here that he's at his best when he's playing with Matt Zuccarello.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that simple. Those two guys have a knack for finding each other, and Zuccarello makes him a better player. So, and I'm not saying that means that none of this is on Kirill, but I think that's part of the reason he's looked off. But he hasn't had that stretch where he dominates 4 or 5 shifts in a row where the puck is on his stick the entire time. And remember the times we used to see him circle the zone and just maintain possession and nobody could take it away from him. And we haven't seen that yet. So we'll see. If Kirill Kaprizov ends up being the biggest problem this team has, then things are going great.
John Gallagher goes, what happened with Justin Brazeau during his time with the Wild? He seemed to be decent in Boston before we traded for him, and then he started out hot with the Pens. Why didn't they re-sign him, and why didn't it work out here? I mean, first of all, Brazeau did start hot with the Bruins, but then he absolutely fell off the map before the Wild got him. He's always been a scorer. I mean, he was a scorer in junior. He was a scorer at the beginning of his Boston career. I think the Wild acquired him and they put him on the 4th line. I mean, just because he's 6'5", he's never been a checker at any point in any of his career. So right now he's playing on a top 6 role with Evgeny Malkin, which was an area where he just didn't have that ability with the Wild. And so he had one goal with the Wild off his skate.
And when the Wild acquired him, I remember talking to a couple scouts and talking to Lou Nanne, who had watched him play quite a bit in the Boston organization, and said he's got really good hands for a big guy. Well, the Pittsburgh guys, it's the first thing when I asked them, how's Brazeau playing for you? They said his hands are amazing for a big guy. And the Wild just never saw it.
Unfortunately. We didn't see it. And the shame of it is now he's lighting it up in Pittsburgh, and who knows how sustainable that is. And Murat Huzdinov is playing first line in freaking Boston. Who again knows how sustainable that is? Good podcast, Anthony. Do you remember our next live show? Oh boy!
Let's just say that I might have.
I've only said it 3 times on the show.
It's in November.
Yep, November 18th is our next live show. That is at Splitrocks, 7 p.m. Put it on your calendar, Anthony.
All right, got it.
Hopefully, everybody. Big game Tuesday against Nashville Predators to close up what has been a disappointing 6-game homestand. Then the Wild play back-to-back games in Carolina and New York. I unfortunately will not be on that trip. Joe Smith will. I'm actually heading out to Cleveland and Buffalo, Anthony, 2 incredibly awesome cities to cover the women's rivalry series, Canada versus U.S., to prepare for both covering men's and women's hockey in the Olympics. But I'm sort of shadowing Haley Salvinen, who's our awesome women's hockey writer at the Athletic.
Get you prepared. Getting ready to go to Milan, so go to Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. So the women's rivalry series is, I'm going to offend like 3 cities here, but Cleveland, Buffalo, and Edmonton, like they do know they could go to other nicer cities, right? I mean, I have to go in December 5 days to Edmonton.
Now, Buffalo and Edmonton makes sense because at least they're hockey towns. Cleveland seems strange.
Yeah, I don't know how that all happened. Cleveland used to be,
going way back, the Cleveland Barons. That's how the Louis executed a merger that led the North Stars to a cup final run.
Yeah, so I'll be covering that. And then I'll be back Sunday night where the Wild play Calgary, I think it is, and then San Jose comes to town again. So hopefully this time they finish in overtime when they have the puck for 3 minutes 40 seconds.
San Jose is on a roll.
Yep. Thanks to everybody for. By the way, did you see Macklin Celebrini and Mo Siders battle yesterday? It was unbelievable. Those two, what great hockey players those two are. But Macklin looked like Sidney Crosby, the way he was battling for possession. It was awesome. You got to look it up on Twitter, I guess. All right. Thanks to our sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Clamshell Beach Resorts, Onyx Maps Tool and the Edina Galleria, Royal Credit Union, and Stretch Lab. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next week.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world